And if we get into repetitive questions over and over and over, we'll probably just say we've answered that a few different times or tried to, and we'll just move on to the next person who wants to ask questions if it gets truly repetitive. So there's always lots of great things. I know I think I just saw a great post about pickleball today and all the parks, and we could talk all day about the different areas of town where we've done great things and budgeted for the city and all things Orono for sure.
What was the park plan before you became mayor, sir?
Well, the park plan is kind of an amazing question because before we took over, there was not a whole lot of stuff going on the parks. They were just kind of overgrown. I know when we got Big Island, our person who was even handling Big Island said, we just can't keep up with it. We should just let it grow over. And when we got in here, we made sure that we said we could do better. So 10 years ago, we put a Parks Commission back in place, which hadn't been around for 10 years. We really didn't have a parks department at all. And so we've kind of built that up, not only with the budget and staffing, but we've actually got a budget now for the actual Parks Commission itself. Because we've got obviously 20 plus parks in Orono. So it's one thing to bring them up to speed. It's another then to continue to maintain them and put money in place. So when things wear out, like we just did in the Crystal Bay neighborhood, we just put a whole new set of playground equipment because we had 10 years ago, I think, just stuff for the small little kids. Now we're kind of putting stuff for a little more bigger kids kind of play and got rid of all the brush. Big Island obviously is a big example that we went and spent probably a year budgeting that with public-private partnerships, which kind of we've been championing over the years to get money from the legislature. We have private donations, I think of like $130,000 that we got matching funds for grants. So that was a big deal. And so that cost probably $1 million with a very little city money involved. That is now you can go there. They're starting to have tours there again because in the past, when they blew up the bathrooms, you couldn't go have tours at a park in the middle of a lake and drop people off for a couple hours without bathrooms. So that all stopped for years and years and years and years. And now those tours have started all back up again. We have the docks there, so you can go and hang out on the docks. We have dock problems where people stay there too long sometimes, and we have markers that talk about the history out there, because a lot of people don't even know the history about all the Excelsior amusement that was out there, and the veterans camp that was out there, where there's still remnants of all that you can walk around and see. You just don't realize that they had the 300-foot monolith that was there, and you look at those pictures and it doesn't seem real, but it's real. In fact, when the war was over, and when they built that, they were taking all the bricks down to try and reuse them in the war because we were out of supplies, and they just threw them right in the bay, right outside Big Island. So they're all at the bottom of the lake now, which is strange but true. But all the other park systems, and we can kind of go, all the Bar Park's been updated, Livingston Park's been updated, French Creek has been updated, Beaterwood, we're now working on Hackberry. We're now looking to bring pickleball and pickleball to Orono, because that's a big deal to have pickleball. It's one of the fastest growing sports, and obviously one thing we've committed to is we want our parks to be active parks, people using them. And we obviously have some very calm parks where you're just gonna walk around, but we have a lot of active parks. And I think what we saw in COVID was the one thing we don't want is social isolation. We want people to be able to go out and do things and having our parks for our residents up and at them and completely redone and organized and constantly taken care of. So that's where that kind of dovetails into our parks department, where now we have an entire division that we didn't have 10 years ago that needs places to put their stuff and everything else. So we have stuff around the city that they put their mowers and everything else, so they don't have to always come all the way back to the Public Works building, then go to the other side of Orono to do their mowers. And so we move all that stuff around. We have street sweepers, but they now are headquartered in the new Public Works building because it's Public Works. We got the Parks Department over there, and we have our fleet maintenance facility that takes care of all 50 vehicles that we have now. Because we have lots of police cars, we have obviously lots of plows, Public Works vehicles, we obviously have fire engines and all that stuff now, we have city inspection vehicles, staff is constantly going out, and the last thing you want is all of a sudden be in the middle of the winter and your plows are broken, you can't plow your streets. So we get our stuff taken care of first, and here's our cookies. I talked about the interruption, but everybody said they're okay with the interruption with warm cookies. So Jeff, you have to highlight the name of your business.
So it's Thank Goodness Oven Fresh Cookies. 20 years we've been delivering warm cookies to the 7-county metro. And here they are.
I think he knew you were hungry, Jim. He put them right in front of us.
So I got 3 boxes, but you pop it open and take.
Where's your bakery?
It's in detail.
So this one is, what'd you call this?
That's a baker's choice.
Baker's choice, yep.
But it's only got oatmeal raisin, and then these are to die for. Those are Rocky Road. Those are macadamia nut.
Road. Put it on my plate.
Caramel chocolate chunk in the back.
Want one, Jimmy?
I'm good right now.
Okay, I'll pass them down here if anyone wants to take a look at kind of a great business model that he's got going here. And
And I have chocolate chip.
right, and chocolate chips.
They are very good. I've had them.
Yeah, it's called warm. I like warm.
Yeah.
I'll grab the
Nice to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you.
Can I sit down?
Yeah, absolutely. Have a seat.
Have a cookie. Oh, I got a notepad even. Look at me.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pass those down and we got cookies, or plates to be able to put them on.
Yeah, Mayor, thanks.
I know it's a long answer to the
Yeah,
question,
no,
but
I
it's a
appreciate
complicated, long history of,
It just seems like for decades, nothing happened with any of our parks, and you can like or not like pickleball, you can like or not like a dog park, but at the end of the day, it seems like there's a plan. I'm just a layperson from the outside, but it seems like there's a plan moving forward, to do what you just said, and it's pretty neat to see that that's happening now, so.
yeah, and so not only we've got it fully staffed, we've also, as part of our parks, which is kind of its own business unit, is the golf course, which is a park as well. But that's got fully staffed. We have rangers, we've got starters, stuff that we've never had before. We've expanded the deck, which is part of the master plan of the golf course to make it more user-friendly for people who want to come and use it. Obviously, we just put a pavilion in place, which again, we went back to our public-private partnerships. We had the Orono Lions, who are a fabulous organization and does lots of stuff with many cities here around us, and they came to the table and wanted to help us put a great pavilion together, which is for use for all the golfers and sitting out. And what was so perfect about that is when we had the celebration for that pavilion, it started pouring rain, and we were able to have all 50 people and the band and all the music under the pavilion with like nothing changed. We just got to be able to enjoy it, play the music, and it showed exactly why it works, and we need something like that. So now we just continue to add these amenities to our parks, and then have the budget again to continue to keep them maintained, which is a big deal, you know? So that's a great question.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about today was, it's the elephant in the room for me is, I've watched Long Lake bully Orono for decades and absolutely bullied them for public works, sewer, water, police, fire, you name it, Long Lake has bullied Orono. And in my opinion, Orono paid to just make it go away. They paid extra to make it go away. If you wanna, I don't know. That's what I hear in the community is Orono's bullying them, and the truth of the fact, in my opinion, is that it's the other way around completely. I don't know if you want to address that or.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that has gone on between cities like Long Lake and Orono, and our police, when we had police and they canceled the 90 days notice, that was way before my time. 25 years ago when they had a referendum to merge the cities, there was obviously a lot of consternation about that. Orono voted yes, Long Lake voted no. So there's a lot of history between the cities that predates me. I don't quite understand what the animosity issues are. I love going to Long Lake to the good restaurants and all that stuff, just like we have great restaurants in Navarre. It all just started out as a simple conversation 6 years ago with the then Mayor Marty Schneider and their city administrator, and we sat down, and it's documented, I think, in the Laker Pioneer back in 2018, that would just say that contract's coming up, we'd like to make some operational changes. We've got 87% of the business, we essentially own all the equipment, we own all the stations, half of the one over at Willow, and we'd like to be in charge at this point moving forward. We think it's in the best interest of our citizens, because we have an HR department, we have a finance department, we can budget correctly. And we've kind of just gotten the cold shoulder, generally speaking, for 6 years now, and we've had lots of conversations, either behind the scenes, we've had public conversations, we've had all these, letters going back and forth, but some people keep thinking that this just popped up out of the blue. But these conversations started 6 years ago, and we've just kind of been working towards that. And the biggest issue we said is if we can't get some resolution on having some kind of conversation about moving forward, we're going to need to put the building blocks in place to bring these services in-house, since we already own it all. And what we found out too, if you look at all the equipment lists, a lot of the stuff has basically been timed out. It's expired, whether it's the equipment, whether it's the fire engines and all the trucks that go with it. So it was a perfect time to say, okay, if we're going to start spending this money to actually do what we do with parks, and we staff it correctly and we fund it correctly under a different model, going from the rural model to actually a suburban model, because our city has changed and the ages have changed and the types of calls have changed, that we need to kind of change things a little bit, kind of using best practices. Because I think the one thing that we probably all can say is the one thing that's always constant is change. Things are changing all the time. And here in Orono, we've always followed the best practices model. It doesn't matter if you think things are going good or not going good. We're going to look at what our best practices, what can be done better, what are the new technology coming out, kind of like in the police department, we've got body cams and all that kind of stuff. We're constantly in front of all that stuff, and that worked the same way with the fire department. We found, okay, we need to start budgeting for reserves for replacement for years down the road, because when these things are 20 years old, you don't want to go, oh my God, what am I going to do now? I need some money. When you know these have functional obsolescence issues, like roads, like water, like sewer, like roofs, they over time need to be replaced. And so we've put all those same building blocks in place for our residents to make sure they're protected. So just like with the plow trucks in the wintertime, you don't want them falling apart when you actually need them, right? And so we put all those building blocks in place for public works, for police, and we're doing the same thing for fire. And obviously we've started at this point. We have now got it, we're servicing the Navarre area. In a year when the rest of the contract expires, we will fold in the rest of Orono. We own the station. Some people don't know the logistics of what we own, but the station that is actually in Navarre, we own that 100%. Even though it sits empty, Long Lake won't let us basically use that as a fire department, even though we've talked to them many times about shared services that we can help them out, and et cetera. So, but in a year they'll give us that station. We've got a temporary station over there in the meantime, which works great. And then we own half of Willow over here, and generally about 85% of all the equipment, all the engines, et cetera, even though they're all 15 and 20 years old, there might be some parts value to them essentially, but not a lot of long-term value at this point. So that's a long answer to the question, but a lot of that stuff starts way before me. But we just came in as a business owner, and a lot of people that have great business experience, and say, let's just plan. That what you would expect your elected officials to always be planning for you, because it's definitely not for the money. I get paid $350 a month, right? And that's a couple meals over at the lake room with my wife. So, but planning is the big issue, and that's what you should be expected to do as a public official. And that's kind of what we've done for everybody: parks, public works, police, and now the same thing with fire as well.
And how is that controversial?
Well, I don't think it's controversial for the Orono residents.
No,
I think they have.
I mean, that's the part I just don't get. They have 5% of the cost, right?
Yeah. 5 or 6 right in there, plus or minus a
we were
point.
just talking on the TV last night that Patrick Mahomes actually owns a portion of the Kansas City Royals. Okay? Do you think that Patrick Mahomes would have veto power over the actual main owner of that team? No. He owns part of the team, sure, but I mean, Long Lake should have no say in any of it.
Well, a little bit of deception in that statement is that, I can show you the contract, that I don't know contracts. It doesn't look like, it looks like you and I met and went to Kinko's and came up with something, and it doesn't look like what I would think of, but it's still a contract. And it says, I'll pull it out in a second, I'll read it verbatim, but that at least two cities have to be together, and at least 60% of the people shouldering the cost make the final decisions. So Orono won't have 87, we pay whatever, 85 to 90% and use the services, I'm quoting now, like 78 to 90% of the cost. But the actual, this whole thing about the veto power is an incorrect statement, because the other cities combined will never get to 60%. So whatever Orono says is the fact.
So then why can't we just bring it this way then?
Well, that's an interesting part of the contract.
Because you have a contract.
It's
Well,
a contract though, it is the
We
contract.
don't come up with the budget. We have no control of coming up with the budget. We only get to approve a budget that gets brought to us. We also don't have any control.
You could deny it.
Long Lake comes up with that budget, okay? Also, we've got the budget. We also have no control of, once it's approved, how they spend it. They can move money around, they can do whatever they want, right? And what's interesting is the minute we say, and this has been kind of a problem, the minute we say we don't approve this budget or we don't approve a CIP, all of a sudden now they say you're interfering with the contract. And now we're bad because we don't think that this is being run correctly. But we only get a veto or approve what gets put in front of us. We don't get to come up with the budget. 6%, like you talked. Patrick Mahomes, no, he's not gonna get to have that say. So that's been the quandary that we've been having this whole time, is when you've got 5%, why do you think you should have veto power?
But you
I
But
mean,
they
we
don't,
even-
so they don't request that. That's
They
never
have-
been.
Well, actually, I've been in the room.
That's not true.
And they have said that unless they have veto power over what we do, they're not interested in working with us.
That's not
And
true.
I have been in the room with those conversations, so
That's not true.
it is actually true.
And also,
Kelly.
you have denied, Orono, the city of Orono has had almost full budgetary power over the Long Lake Fire Department and has denied almost every capital improvement expenditure brought to the council for the department.
Only the last couple of years we have, because we said it doesn't make any sense to approve a capital improvement that is coming in when the contract
No, I'm
ends.
talking about for the last
or
10
No,
years.
that is, and that's false too.
Well,
I'm
how-
sorry, Kelly, you're
That's
not
an
gonna,
absolute false.
you're not gonna, you're
How
not gonna
many
come up with
capital
false.
improvement
30 years, I
expenditures,
can tell you,
how many
in the last
capital
2
improvement
years.
expenditures have been
Motor
approved? And for what?
Stop.
No, I
Motor
will
mouth,
not, sir.
stop.
Please
No,
don't be rude.
sir.
Please don't.
You do not get to talk to me like that, I'm
I
sorry.
do get to talk to you
No,
like
you do
that.
not, I'm sorry, you do not.
Well, first of all, it's false.
Mr.
We
Mayor,
haven't not approved any capital expenditure unless the last couple of years, which we said, if there's anything you actually need, we'll be glad to talk about that, but we're
Well,
not gonna
according to
do-
you, they
but
need
do I
truck
get to talk? Are
upgrades.
you
According to
gonna
you,
interrupt?
they need equipment upgrades.
Well, they do.
And but they've been denied. According to you, that's what they need and have needed,
no, that's
and you've
false.
denied
I'm
those
sorry,
capital
Kelly. I'm
improvement
sorry, Kelly,
expenditures.
that's
I'm not
false.
sure what
That's false.
the argument here at this table is, but I'm
Something-
really
Mr.
happy with
Comment.
what's going on with the Orono Fire Department. I see them every day now. They drive by my house. They're a part of my community. I know that
Because
if
they
my
don't have a fire
80-some-year-old
station.
neighbors have a problem, they're right there. So
Long Lake
thank
has
you.
provided stable
Thank you very
service
much.
for
I have
25
no idea
years.
why anyone's complaining about anything that we're already a part of. It's done.
And we will have
It's not
100%
Going
control.
forward.
Like in
So-
Navarre, we have 100% control of Orono Fire Department.
Are you
We don't
saying
need-
that you
we
have
don't
not
need-
enjoyed safe service
we
from the
don't
Long
need
Lake Fire
anybody's
Department for
permission.
25 years?
We
It
don't need
takes
any
15
permission.
minutes to get from my house.
Do you know
and
that
I'm
they're
one of the
stationed
closer
here?
ones.
You know that Orono Fire is stationed right here,
I
which
can-
is further
I
than the
can
fire
tell
department
you
where Long
that
Lake
being
is.
on Tonkawa,
You know that, right?
I see the Long Lake Fire Department come by for years. Now they go by on North Shore Drive. So it's a totally different orientation.
But you know
I'm
that
sorry if you
the
missed
station
that.
is located here. Orono Fire is located
We have
here,
two
12 minutes
stations.
away.
We have two stations,
No one
Kelly.
is
We have two
stationed at the
stations.
Navarre
Yes,
station.
they are.
Oh.
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Brand
We
new
have
fire
our,
truck
we have our
goes
fire
by
station. They're there
3-4
all the
times a
time.
day.
Chris, I saw you raising your
Mayor, I have
hand.
a question. So when Long Lake kicked Orono police to the curb, did you hear Orono screaming and
They did
hollering?
not kick
Long-
Orono police
Long
to the
Lake had
curb.
every opportunity
Long Lake-
along the
the
way
contract
to-
expired,
they had
and they
every
went through the proper
opportunity to
channels.
Provide input. What sense does that make? They completely encircle Long Lake. Orono said, "What can we do? How is there anything we can do better?" "No, you do a great job." "Oh, okay. Well, we're kicking you to the curb anyways."
That's not what they said. They said, we're going to put this out to RFP, and they put it out to RFP, and they decided to move forward with Wyzetta. They did not then violate.
But that's my question to
with-
Long Lake, is
that
why
was
are
per
you
the
mad?
contract.
Why are you mad that Orono's saying, "That's fine, we're just gonna go our own way"? Why?
But we're not, that's not what we're mad
Why
about.
are you so mad?
That's not what we're mad about.
I don't understand this.
Sir, we're not mad about that. They're welcome to start their own fire department.
Are they though?
We are,
Doesn't sound like it.
I'm sorry, am I allowed to answer the question? He asked me a question.
Kelly, you're interrupting everybody, Kelly.
You asked me why we're not mad about that. We're mad that they're violating the contract and that it's hindering the service of Long Lake, sir. And that they're hindering the service, and a judge has now found them in contempt of court 3 times for violating the contract for hindering the service of the Long Lake Fire Department. That is what we are mad about, if you want to say that we're mad about anything.
Seems more
Also,
bitter than mad.
no, well, I mean, I don't care what you call it, but I am not mad about anything. I wish, and my hope is that they could come together and find us a shared solution for all the. Well, I appreciate that you say
partner with
that.
somebody that's treated me that way either.
Okay, but that door swings both ways, sir.
But I think now we just need to figure out how we're gonna move forward.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's happening,
It's,
it's not going backwards.
it could go backwards.
So obviously you live in Long Lake.
Yes, which you know, sir.
So now, why, I'm just curious, why are you not angry that your city is now gonna be going from paying 5% to 100%?
Because that's not the way it works. That's not the way it's going to work.
If Orono's leaving, right?
Right.
So that you're losing 87% of it, right? Am I wrong?
You're wrong.
Well, what is Long Lake's plan? That is a good question.
You're
I understand. What is
absolutely
Long Lake's
welcome to
plan?
talk to Long Lake about their plan, but we're here to talk about
Well, I know,
Orono.
but you're a Long Lake resident, and he had a good question.
I
Have you been to
receive
Long
services
Lake?
from
Have
the
you
city
been-
of Orono, and my husband's a Long Lake firefighter, and this impacts our family. It impacts the families of all of my friends and relatives that live in the area. I'm concerned about the way that the public safety changes in Orono are happening. I have every right to be here as anyone else.
Well, I didn't say you
So
didn't.
Station 2, the building,
The one in Navarre you're talking about.
correct. How is that staffed? Like, who's physically there?
Well, the duty crew that's on staff is there.
So that is completely opposite of what when I went to the fire tour asset or.
Well, they're up here and down there. They're at both.
What
They're
he said to
constantly
me,
back and forth.
He said, well, it's a windowless shed. To his reply, I'm like, do you guys just sit in there?
No.
No, nobody just sits around
Well,
waiting
I
for
know
stuff. That's why,
of
to
course.
Yeah.
James' point, he's seeing them in their neighborhoods, driving around, making
Sure.
sure things are taken care of. They're like the police. In fact, what was amazing
No.
just recently is they actually beat the police to some calls. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's never happened ever. And now we are in the community. We're there, spot on all the time. They know who the people are. Bam, bam, bam. It's the best service from a rural model to a suburban model now that any residents in Orono have ever experienced, because we have a different model. And Long Lake can do whatever they want, but for our residents, when we know that we have response time issues, and we have issues with all the different things, because I'm the youngest baby boomer, I'm 60, and it tells you that in the last 25 years, our population has got a lot older. 75% of our calls are medical calls now. So now all of our firefighters are trained EMTs. They're out in the area and they can get there immediately to help any type of medical situation that's going on way faster than somebody who's working in Plymouth and who needs to get called on a volunteer basis, because that's what Long Lake is currently, is all
We
volunteer.
don't have any firefighters
So you
in
don't know
Plymouth.
who you get. You don't know when they're gonna come, if they can come. And so
Well,
now
there's data that shows when they
We have
come.
solved that problem long-term for the residents of Orono. And to James' point, why wouldn't everybody be happy about that? Everybody in Orono is happy about that. Long
That's not
Lake
true.
has some different feelings.
I think that's a very broad of a statement. And I think what happens when the paramedics arrive?
Paramedics from,
All for your medical calls. What happens when those paramedics come if they arrive after the fire department?
well, I'm not sure exactly what question about, but the paramedics are in the ambulance?
So
Like North
fire
Memorial?
arrives, police arrive, North Memorial shows.
North
happens?
Memorial runs the show.
Correct.
They are in charge once they get there.
Correct.
And they then decide who needs to stay and who needs to go.
Correct.
That's all their decision at that point.
Correct.
But in the meantime, we have all the EMTs because we're in the neighborhoods now. So we're getting there before they are.
I think it's a very tiny window that the fire officers are running any sort of scene before the paramedics come.
It could just
And
be
as-
life and death.
Which could
I
be
know
life
it's
and death, so
just
that's
life.
exactly,
That's
so thank you for
30
that.
seconds.
Thank you,
I'm a nurse
thank
by
you.
background,
Thank
and
you.
my beef, as most people know in here, is not with the firefighters. My beef is the an unknown cost. And I met with thanks for having me meet with the finance person a couple months ago, because what I found out in that fire needs assessment report, why it was $850,000 off the estimate of 1.6 million. Obviously I only had 2024 numbers at that point. And it was because per directive, they were not to include 2024 or 2025 numbers to service the Long Lake pieces. It's so that
Well, there's two pieces. There's Orono Fire Department and there's Long Lake Fire, because we have
Fire
two.
needs assessment,
we
we
have
still are
two-
paying for 2 years, and it's, my whole beef is trying to find out how much this is gonna cost. And to your point of the equipment aging out, we're gonna have a huge amount of aging out equipment all at the same time. These aren't gonna be staggered vehicles.
Well, they actually are staggered, and that actually is not, that is incorrect, and I tell you, it is staggered. That's why we have things we've bought, things we've leased, we have older vehicles we've rehabbed, so we are actually staggering it all out there.
I would
So,
publish that information, because it's been very difficult to find. It's been very difficult to find.
I don't know how many times you've talked to the staff about all this stuff, so I'm not understanding why you continue to come here with the same questions
I
over
never
and
asked about the
over and over.
paramedics.
This
I've
is like a
asked about
circle
the cost.
conversation, so I think we need to move on from that conversation, because we've had it 20 times, and I think we've
Paramedics I've
answered
never
yours, so.
asked.
Is
And
there
I've
anything
never found out
beyond
the
fire, because I know all you
assessment.
wanna do is talk fire probably, and that's all you wanna do, but I think we've had that fire conversation now. The owner residents are incredibly happy.
I actually wanna get an answer though on what Long Lake is gonna do though, since you seem to know.
You should go to the city of Long Lake and you should ask them.
I'm curious just right now, I'm gonna leave.
Because
here
it's not my
give
job to
one-
educate you, sir.
Okay, if I had to guess, I have
All I know
absolutely
is
no
every
idea.
great
I have
city has
zero
its own
idea.
fire
I doubt they're
department,
gonna,
and I'm
I
very
bet they'll
thankful
contract with
for
someone else.
Orono's
Yeah.
fire department
I
going
mean,
forward.
Okay,
I have absolutely no idea, but it
and they
would
won't,
make
and they
no
probably
sense.
won't contract with Orono, and so then probably have to go to like Wayzata, and then,
I mean, I have no
Village
idea,
facility.
but I mean,
Well, what's so incredible about that is we offered them even just in July,
Free.
90 days ago, free 20 years service. I mean, how do you explain that to your residents that you're, that's an interesting one.
well,
I'm not
that's
sure how they
what
do
I,
that.
that's just what I'm just trying to understand, like he said, I mean, I'm totally fine with what's going on.
I bet.
And you obviously are very angry about it, and
No.
I just, okay, well, whatever. But you, I mean, instead of focusing all that animosity towards my city, I'm just curious why you don't have an answer to what your city's gonna
but
do.
this is not coffee with a
This is
person
not
from
coffee
Long
with
Lake,
Kelly.
This is coffee with the mayor.
Yeah.
Right,
But when she brings it up.
I didn't
wouldn't
bring it
just
up.
be common knowledge or just to share that?
I think her
I don't
answers
know.
could get solved by Long Lake than Orono. Orono
Yeah.
is moving on.
Yeah.
I think that the questions about what Long Lake is gonna do should be directed to Long Lake.
Okay.
You're welcome to be here, of course. It's an open public meeting, but Orono's not gonna have the answers for you. Long Lake
I'm
will
not
have
asking
them.
for answers.
What are you asking?
I haven't asked a question. I'm here observing.
Anything else, Mary?
I'm here observing.
Surveying and filming.
Why, I
Yes.
think we're good on fire. Let's now we can move
I
on.
just wanted to comment on something that Chris said very much earlier, which is kind of a little more global perspective, and then I won't say anything more about fire. But you made mention of the elephant in the room. And I think that's a really good analogy, because there's something that's not commonly talked about. It's not in the articles, it's not in the Friends of Orono articles, and that's the fact that Orono is a sovereign, independent municipality. It has the right and the privilege to hire third-party vendor contractors for any type of service that it really needs that it doesn't have within house. So what has it, and I've lived here for 32 years. So I've been here through different administrations, different mayors, different city councils. I've watched other contracts and other vendors of services hired and fired. The contracts are the Bible, to your point. The contracts outline exactly how these things are supposed to run. But when they expire, and there's a renewal period, there's always a preemptive consideration at an executive level. Decisions have to be made earlier on than when the contract expires and the day that it's done drops. Long Lake has been a third-party service vendor of contract services for fire. At one point in time, Wayzata was. That did not work out so swell. I was here. I remember it. I knew the chiefs and the people that worked there. They
Well,
were
Long
good
Lake has
friends of
had
mine.
fire for 109 years.
Yeah, well.
So they weren't a third-party
whatever,
vendor.
Ralph, just let me finish.
But they,
okay?
we said they were a third-party vendor, they were not.
Let me finish. The elephant in the room is the fact that the contract was preeminently going to expire. This mayor, with, an unbelievable amount of business experience, knew that there were elements of a renewal that were not embodied in the original contract. And in order for the city of Orono to continue to function economically and strategically as a fire service, it needed to have some changes in the new contract, which, being that I was a volunteer official public appointee, I was in the middle of seeing a lot of this and overhearing a lot of the conversation. It was reasonable and sensible for the city of Orono to ask for these changes. And I can tell you that without any doubt, that the train has left the station. The opportunity that the city of Long Lake had, not the fire service. The fire service is stellar. It's an excellent group of competent and very thorough individual, well-trained, and I'm not gonna get into things about equipment. It is the governance and the city council of the city of Long Lake that screwed themselves out of any opportunity to have a renewal of this contract, and it's not gonna happen. It's done. The train has left the station. There isn't any more negotiating. The people that hold on to this idea that Long Lake is still going to be a third-party vendor of services under contract is a dream. It's a pipe dream, and that's the elephant in the room. People need to get a grip on the fact that Long Lake is done. It's over. It's not going to be a third-party vendor service, and there's not going to be a new contract. Unless something miraculous happens and the mayor pulls a new rabbit out of the hat. I don't think that he has any intentions of doing that.
Well, that's a good ending to the fire conversation. And another great conversation is just the budget in general. Some of the things that, people don't realize from Orono is, 85% of our costs in this city are people costs. We have 100 employees in Orono deployed throughout all our divisions. And we also have, I think, 3 or 4 unions here. And those are anywhere from 3 to 5% every year, and we have to obviously take care of those. We want to make sure our people are paid correctly to keep all the people that we have, because we have great people here, and we do that very well. And so that's 85% of our costs. And so also what people don't realize, about in the last 10 years, we've built 500 new homes in Orono. That's a lot of homes, right? And that doesn't even include all the tear downs where people made additions. 8 years ago when I got in, and we said we have to make this process a little simpler, because right now it's like or no. And we promised that we were going to bring yes back to Orono. So the first thing we did is create a code review committee to start getting the codes aligned and make it a lot simpler for people. We brought technology into place where we had no technology at the city. Now everything is online, whether it's information about properties, let alone the permitting process itself. And so when we had this code review committee, we brought in a lot of builders, real estate agents, and just local people who knew the real estate market to say, what can we do to simplify this? Because this is way too complicated. We don't want people just building in the middle of the night on the weekends all the time. We want to have people come in, we want them to improve their properties and do all that kind of stuff. And the first thing staff said when we said we want to cut the costs and what it costs to do these things to actually what it actually costs was just picking some big numbers. They said we're going to lose some revenue. And I said, you know what? I said, I bet you we will make that up in volume. And exactly when we did that, it's exactly what happened. We made the process simpler. We got all the permitting in. So now we've expanded our tax base. All these new homes, all these new additions, everything else. And if you go to any other city, and on top of budgeting everything, we have budgeted for roads, sewer, water, parks, everything we had $0 for 10 years ago and 8 years ago, we are now funded. It's interesting because I just saw Maple Plain just posted from their city hall that they are having an open house because they have to go and assess their residents and bond for like almost $6 million worth of improvements just for their roads and water and sewer because they have nothing in their budget. And so that's the one thing you'll never see from Orono, getting a letter in your mail saying we're going to give you a special assessment for your roads or your water or sewer, because we're proactive enough over the years to make sure that stuff that we know is going to be functionally obsolescent and that will deteriorate over time, that you need to put that in your budget moving forward. So that's what we have done. So when we go out and do these roads, we have fixed the water at the sewer at the same time. We don't give anybody a bill. When things break, like we just had a big, over the Coffee Bridge over by Fletcher's, we had a big main break under the bridge, under the water. And if you didn't have any money to go fix it, you got a problem. Well, we have the money in, we have reserves for emergencies and for things we know are gonna deteriorate over time. So we're able to get that done, get it fixed, and it's probably $200,000. But these things are not cheap these days, but we're planning. And so Orono, all the people I meet are just, they're dancing half the times I talk to them because they're like, we have everything in our budget. We are the gem at the top of the mountain. Like we talked about one time where we were the diamond in the rough 10 years ago. We polished that diamond. Now we're at the top of the hill, the shining beacon that shows how you can do it. Given time, you get enough time and a council that's on the same direction to make sure you're thinking about the Orono residents first and foremost, you get that done. And that's what we've done. And we will continue to get that moving forward for Orono as well. So it's a great conversation for sure about how we've gotten to where we are over time from zero.
You said there's 500 new homes over the what course of time?
Last 10 years that I've been on the council.
Where are those houses?
Well,
I mean, I know, like the golf course.
over time, what I mean, like you got Orono Preserve over here, you've got these over here, there's people, there's little onesies and twosies that you get where people divide the lots, right back in Navarre behind Lunds, there's land back there, there's five homes back there now. People there's all these little acreages, little by little, that in the past it was hard for people to get approval to come and subdivide your lots and get all that stuff down, and we just don't willy-nilly do it, but we've made it easier to come in and get that process done. And so that's helped create more tax value for us and tax base to make sure we fund all the things that you need to have funded in your city, which we have done, because when we first had all this debt, there's debt for roads and water and sewer, which is short-term kind of debt. And so we paid off all the short-term debt and took those same payments, and then we built the new public works, which we needed to have with all the divisions we've got from the 35-year-old building that's surrounded by swamps that would need twice as much space. And it paid for the same payments that are over there, and we locked it in at 1.9% for 30 years. And so we have transferred the same payments and completely accomplished that without having to raise anybody's taxes. And now we're set for a good 100 years plus. It's get the same forward thinking for the residents with that $350 a month that I get paid for my financial expertise. Thank you.
But, so Maple Plain, when they are doing their assessments or whatever, that's their ineptitude, it's a lack of planning that would make them do that, in your opinion?
From my opinion, if you plan long enough ahead of time, you can put reserves in place to have that. Long Lake does the same thing. They assess, or they do franchise fees, they do the same thing. So and most of the communities are all like that. We have shown that there's a different way. We've been kind of the leader in lots of different ways that the cities have kind of followed our lead. I've even noticed in Long Lake recently, they were championing the fact that even though their budget went up, they had a flat tax levy, which is what we've had for 10 years. So they're championing the same thing. It's amazing how people start following our lead.
But Long Lake's reserves have maintained at 50%, and yours is going down, correct?
Well, we're just using, what's interesting about that whole conversation as well is we knew 8 years ago all the different accounting numbers that we had around to be able to put all these things in place when we needed them. Right. We knew they were there, and the state requires or suggests that you have at least 18%, and that's what they require. That's what they say you should have. 18, actually, 18. And so we have 35 or 40 at this point. So, but we knew we had all these capabilities of doing all this stuff. We just didn't need to use it until we actually needed to use it when we were putting the things in place that we needed to. So we were planning a long time ago to know all the different reserves we had that we could use to put all these things in place without ever having to change our tax rate, and to still have the best bond rating in the United States. And nobody can match what we've got out there, that's for sure. No one can say what we can say about all the reserves, the tax rate, fully funded, fire service, police service, public works. We have amazing people here, that is for sure.
Well, the startup cost of the fire department is high. It is going to continue to drop as the years progress, correct?
No.
Yes.
No.
In fact, the startup costs were high, but we were able to feather and budget that over the course of the years. So by the time like right now we have Orono has $1 million in our budget for 2025 for fire, and then we've got, I don't know, as a round number, $700,000 for Long Lake. When that contract ends, that $700,000 will go to zero at Long Lake, and that $700,000 will come over here. And we'll be able to do the same stuff for all the same costs, but for all of Orono under a suburban model
But to
with
serve
duty,
all of-
with duty crew and volunteer firefighter.
But to serve all of
Combination makes
Orono,
sense.
Long Lake serving Orono is about $600,000. What you're saying is that operationally, you're spending about $1 million and that the $700,000 will come over. So you're saying operationally, post Long Lake serving Orono, that it'll be $1.7 million to operate plus capital expenditures.
No, the capital
Plus
is all-
facilities, correct. So,
Well, the facilities are
but
all
what you're
paid for.
saying is, and I'm not great at math, but you're at 600,000 now, and you'll be at 1.7 later, plus capital and
No,
facilities.
that includes capital and facilities is already in there.
Right.
So that's all in there, but we're also,
Wait,
so
they
now,
have
but now,
1.4
but now we have all the money in there for all the
That's what he
capital
said,
improvements,
yes.
everything moving forward.
That's not
And all
even
the
the same
people,
as your budget.
and a completely different model, because if you find out that your citizens are at risk because of times that are not responsible in terms of what you can do, you don't just turn away and go, I'll just wait that for another day. No, you take care of it, because that's what people who do on your council, who want to make sure the citizens are taken care of, will get the right model and get the right response times. And if anybody can say they want to just do it for less, but and then you could potentially put lives at risk.
Long Lake's had bad response times.
Yes,
according
actually.
to you.
Yes,
Okay.
and we have taken care of that problem. Chris?
I'm not 100% sure. So you're going from a model of more or less just paid on call, which again, I'm not minimizing, I think they do a great job.
Which is
But we're
volunteer,
changing a
yeah.
model from one duty officer who's, we could argue, and we're going to, there's actually, so is it like 12 hours a day, or how often is there a duty crew?
That's from 6 in the morning to 10 at night, 7 days a
Oh,
week.
okay.
So what is that, 6
So-
to 10, that's 16 hours.
I mean, it would only make sense that it costs, people are 85% of your costs are gonna go up if you're changing your model,
You know that
right?
Long Lake has duty crews as well.
Well, they're
I think they're
volunteer
just
duty
starting
crews.
them.
They're volunteer
No, it's been
duty
since
crews.
2023.
They're volunteer duty crews. from
That's
the
pretty
same
new.
people.
Well, it's not,
even agree on that's pretty darn new.
well, it's not newer than the Orono Fire
Well,
Department.
once again, they're following our lead because we found that things weren't being done right. So then they all of a sudden decided to say, oh my God, we should probably do that too. Once again, it's Orono leading the way and everybody else following us.
So your numbers you quoted, we're not including the capital improvement plan for 2024, the numbers with the two departments.
I would ask staff. I think some of these
This is
minutia
from
questions
staff.
are
This is
staff
from
questions.
staff. Yeah, the
And
capital
that's the
improvement
staff's
plan.
job in the end.
Yeah.
And that's where
But then don't
I
make
could care less
mistakes.
if my mayor
Don't-
knows if it's
don't-
18%
Don't
or-
decrease the cost by $1 million. Don't make a statement then. If you don't want the actual data that I got from the city, then don't make those
Well,
statements.
one-time capital improvement costs are very different from long-term capital improvements that are built into your
Of
budget for
course.
reserves replacement.
Of course,
And remember, we bonded $3 million
at 30 years.
for 30 years at 1.9% for the fire department, which we've spent, I think, $200,000 or $300,000. So we got essentially $3 million left, and we haven't even used it. And I don't even know if we're gonna even need to use it.
Well,
So we have plenty of capabilities
Don't misstate
under
numbers.
our
Don't misstate
feathers,
numbers.
ready to go, because that's the way we plan, is we always have something ready to go in reserves for everything we're doing moving forward.
How about Public Works? Did you meet that budget?
Meet what budget?
Were you over on that budget at all?
Well, during COVID, we had a little bit of a cost extreme, so we actually canceled it, rebid it, and brought it down, and got it done. And we had reserves in place that for years ago we had just in case there was overruns. Again, it's great planning. We're always planning if there's problems going forward, and that's what you do as a good business owner. And we've had 5 of them up at the council. We have 4 now, and we've made all those great decisions in the past, so we could not, if there was surprises, we're prepared for them, and we take care of them.
So roughly taking $1 million from water and roughly.
No, we didn't take, now that is completely false. That's a
I saw
complete,
Maggie presenting.
nobody took money from any fund and replaced it, so you're mischaracterizing what she was saying. So that is not true. Thank you.
we can dovetail onto the levy piece then, or the, excuse me, reserves. So did the staff come up with that? Or was
There's,
that a
like I said,
council
I'd have to go review it all again, but nobody's taken any money from any other funds
Okay,
to
I'll
pay
accept
for that.
I don't, whatever. I'm asking a specific question, to decrease the levy, is that, or excuse me, decrease the reserves, is that a staff directed thing or a council directed thing?
Everything comes from the staff as a recommendation.
Okay, then, for direct quote from the meeting, the fund balance policy to be admitted, well, that's the 40%, but tonight, per council directive, staff is recommending da.
Yeah, because they give us recommendations of what they think, and then the council.
Per council
Yeah.
directive.
Okay.
None of the others
Do you
said
want
that.
do you want me to finish, or do you just want me to
Sure.
interrupt? The staff brings us recommendations to the budget committee, and then we say, yes, that sounds like the thing you should present, because that makes sense based on what you're recommending to us. That's what she's talking about.
None of the other ones said that. Some of them said, like the public works head said, I recommend da. Anything else was council recommends,
Well,
except
that's
for.
that's
lowering
because we do have
the
committees that
reserves.
meet with these people, and we have a budget committee that met with Adam and Maggie and I can't remember the other lady, that they present to us, and then we say, yep, that's the recommendations we should bring forward.
None of the other language had per council directive.
Oh, I'm
except for
sorry, you're
lowering
picking
it.
apart
And
words, I'm
page-
just telling you how it works.
Page 29 of 196 of the budget itself. Also, just in case it was a misstatement for Maggie on that meeting, the last council meeting, on page 29, per council directive, staff recommends amending the fund balance policy to reduce the minimum unassigned general fund balance to 40% of the fund's operating budget.
Yeah, no, I answered that question, I answered that question exactly. There's nothing different than what I just said before, I can repeat it, if you want me
None
to.
of the others had per.
Isn't that
Who
how cities work everywhere?
Who are the
It's
others?
it's
Who are the
effort. I don't
others?
understand why it's such a big deal.
Says it a different way. I mean, I'm just saying, is it maybe the way she presented it.
I mean, if you wanna pick about people's
No,
specific
I would
words,
just
I mean, it's
suggest for
weird.
people to read the data, because how
You
it
don't have
comes
to
out
try to rub his
is
nose
that
in it just because you want people to read it. That's how governments work. You work with your
it's
staff.
different, it's
It goes
different
back and forth.
semantics. Of course, these are different semantics.
I know, but your
Because
hidden
the
agenda is
staff-
not very hidden. So let's just move
staff-
forward.
The staff,
It's silly. It's silly to
Okay, tell me
think,
why it's
it's silly to think that you're gonna pay staff to not work with them. They do the daily work for the
when
council.
did I ever say that they weren't?
Good
What,
Lord.
what are you I'm not understanding what you're misunderstanding for me.
The staff makes all the recommendations, they come up with all of it. And then we pick the recommendations that make the most sense of whatever they're making, kinda like if you come up with your variances. It's no different if you come up with variances. The staff presents it and they have their recommendation, and then we either accept it or don't accept it. And that is what is called a council directive from a staff recommendation.
All of the commissions work on the same stratification
Yeah.
of decision process making.
Yep, it's the
Planning
same
commission,
process.
park commission, and obviously you can form committees. It's empowered within the city's empowerment to have separate committees. But I don't really understand when she's talking about semantics. She's creating the semantics, not you.
Yeah, because the staff is the one who comes up with all the reasonable discussions about what they think is the best thing to proceed for the owner residents. And they present that to the budget committee, the HR committee, the police commission, all that stuff. We're like the board of directors. Then we either bring forward the recommendations that have been outlined very well by the staff, or we don't. And that's the same process for everything that we do.
And I can state emphatically, after working with at least a dozen different staffs in a dozen different cities, that Orono has by far the most competent, well-schooled, well-educated, and balanced staff of
I agree.
professionals that advise of any city that I work
I know, we
within
have
the
great
16
staff.
county metro area.
And if you
think
think
they're
staff
amazing.
just does things that they don't agree with, that is not the case. They're the ones who come up with the recommendations of what we should be doing and why we should be doing them, and they're very well thought out. And sometimes there's an A and a B, or an A, B, and a C, but sometimes there's just an A, and they explain it well. And with the directive from board of directors, which is the city council, to say, we want to be fiscally prudent, we want our reserves in place, and everything we want to do is going to be a long-term thought process for the residents. So 20 years from now, everybody will look back and say, God, they put that together well. And that's what we can say from 10 years ago. Today, boy, did we put this together well.
It's still a very unique statement per council directive.
Okay, if you say so.
It might have just been what was said at that moment.
It's said.
But
and
it's in the
also
notes.
documented.
But I don't know that it was so like
But
officially
everything in the end,
directed.
it
I
is
mean,
a
you'd have to
council
ask her if
directive
that was.
because
Right.
you make the
Of course,
decisions.
I mean, she's
understand
just
that,
at
but the
council
way-
talking.
She just has to go over to Maggie and ask her what she means.
Right, right, but also I think, maybe somebody made the point, if staff felt strongly that they shouldn't be done, they would have said that, I mean, it wouldn't.
I think that is the strong language. They're not gonna say we completely disagree with everything that this person's putting in front, or the board is putting in front of us. That is, it's like talking ambassador speak. People don't say, whatever, I hate your green cup. They're gonna say, in this room, we
Well, I can
typically
tell
would
you,
use a
I'm
different
on the
color.
budget committee. I was in the meeting. They bring the recommendations to us going through, and our budget committee, which the council has said we have these committees because we trust the expertise of who's on those committees, to make the recommendation based on what staff is bringing forward. And that's what that is. And if you don't like the particular word that's being used on page 29 of a 300-page document for the 2 words,
All right, let's just do
Okay.
page 4. In order to meet these needs without increasing the overall levy, the recommendation is a combination of fund transfer, reallocating antenna lease revenue, increasing capital levy, and reducing the general fund reserve policy to use the potential surplus to offset the needs. That's to pay for the fire equipment and bonding.
and that was their recommendation they brought forward to us as best practices that we've been knowing for years. We had different policies and reserves in place to do the things that we needed. So if we needed them for surprises that come along, we have ways to take care of them. And that's what we've done. And that's what I say. You can go back 10 years now and say, 10 years later, boy, did we put that together well. Because every surprise we've been able to take care of without flinching at all. So it's been amazing. Anybody want more cookies?
They are good. They're very good.
Jeff, they are awesome.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, that's a big treat.
All right, well, unless anybody's got anything else, feel free to grab a few to go. And I'll go to my next job, which is my property business. All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.